Welcome to the Call Like I See It podcast. I'm James Keys here with Tunde Ogunlana, and we have a special bonus call out this week. And we're going to discuss the back and forth we've seen recently between NBA player and 2023 NBA champion Michael Porter Jr. and Sophie Rain, who is an OnlyFans model who reportedly made 80 million plus in the last year and a half. So, and the back and forth started basically with Porter calling it lame that a lot of dudes, I guess, sending money, through the OnlyFans platform to Sophie Rain, or how much money she's making and so forth. And then she, shot back a little bit. None of it seemed too crazy or too mean spirited, but just shot back saying, hey, you're bouncing a ball, 30 something $million a year. It's not, let's not, you're not coming here as a Harvard professor talking about that. So, and that's me, and that's not her words, but nonetheless, she shot back. So Tunde, your thoughts, what are we seeing here, man? We got NBA players and OnlyFans models sniping at each other, through podcasts and in public and stuff.
So the first thing is I realized I'm getting old. I had no idea. It's funny. I had no idea who either was.
Well, to be fair, I knew who the player was. I'm watching the finals a couple years ago. He's in the finals, and he's hurt a lot, but
I love basketball.
I didn't know who she was, though.
No, but it's funny. I love basketball and I love women, and I had no idea who either was. So that's what makes me feel like I'm getting old. Like, dang.
You don't love basketball and you don't love women as much as you thought.
No, it's funny. The other thing that made me feel old is then more her than him. I look at her, like, dang, she looks like a kid. She's younger than my daughter. So, but no, I think it's a fun, like you said, I think you're right. It's a fun topic because it involves things that aren't that serious in a time when we feel like a lot of things are serious. But yeah, it involves a professional athlete and an NBA player that gets paid way more money than most people should to play basketball. And I don't pick on him. I pick on all of pro sports like that. And then I think that, it's interesting to see a young lady that I think the exact stat was in a calendar year, she made 43 million. But if you stretch it out for 18 months, she made 82 million over that period of time, and she's 20 years old.
Yeah.
So I think there's a lot to be said with that, because the OnlyFans thing makes it, kind of a salacious and all that. And
Like we know what happens on OnlyFans, or at least maybe you don't because you're so old.
Yeah, I don't actually, because I can say this. So all the commenters and the hackers come into my stuff, and you'll see I've never been to OnlyFans website. But on a serious note,
we've heard what happens on OnlyFans.
Yeah.
Well, let me say this. I think that this is.
But let me finish with this, James. Here's why I say it's interesting, because I've only heard what goes on it too. But in reading the article, the young lady says she's still a virgin. She doesn't do porn on that site. And she's a church-going young lady. So my point is that that's what makes it even more interesting to me, that she's making this kind of money on a site where she's not even doing what I assume that people were doing on that
What
site.
A lot of people do with the
site.
Site.
That's to me even more interesting.
Her being a virgin is, you take her word on that. I mean, but I don't know that affects... she doesn't have to have sex on screen, basically. So I like that.
That's my point is, I thought that's what was going on. And now
you thought that was all that was going on. And so there's more than that that's going on. To me, I mean, I would push back against you to say that pro athletes are overpaid. Now, they're paid more than many people would think they deserve to make, but that's a misconception, because they're paid as entertainers. They're not paid as sport players. You're paid because what you do can be put on television or put in an arena, and 80,000, or if it's basketball, 20,000 people will show up and pay money to go in. And so if you do something, if 20,000 people would go watch people teach in school, they would be paid millions of dollars too. Or if 10 million people would turn on TV and watch somebody teach, or watch a guy put out a fire, then they would be paid like that. But they're paid as entertainers. And so entertaining, meaning in person or on television, whether the fact that they're playing a sport is irrelevant. It's whatever they're doing that's entertaining. If they were riding elephants and people wanted to watch that, it would be the same kind of thing. It's entertaining. But to that point, because their professional athletes are entertainers more than they are athletes, this is the pot calling the kettle black. Completely. It's like, well, hold up, bro. You're paid as an entertainer. Whether your ability to draw eyeballs to basketball games, or be a part of a basketball game that's drawing eyeballs, is why you get paid. Her ability to use her assets to draw eyeballs and actually get direct payments, like she's not underpaid or overpaid. She's paid that's a marketplace right there. Like she's paid what people sign up to pay her. He's actually underpaid, I would say, because contractually, the NBA players and the NBA owners make a deal in terms of, okay, well, you can only play the players this much. So NBA players, many of them, at the high end particularly, are all underpaid because they got a max salary and all this other stuff that limits their earnings. LeBron James is worth way more than $80 million, which this conversation came up because he was like, oh, she makes more in salary than LeBron James' salary. So to me, it on one hand, I'm looking at it like pulling the curtain back on this. But on the other hand, it's like, hold up, let's be real here. These are all entertainers. It's entertainment that drives these dollars, and people spend a lot of money on entertainment or for entertainment, or advertisers spend a lot of money to horn in on where there's entertainment. And that's all we're seeing here. For her, it's direct payments. People pay money to see her. That's as pure as it gets. For him, advertisers and or fans pay money to watch basketball. He gets paid, and he gets paid a lot of money for that too. So who is he to say something about her?
Yeah. No, I mean, look, I that's why I'm not so much into what he says about her and this and that. It's more.
Let me ask you a different question. Let me ask you, because there's a specific question I wanted to ask you on this one. Right. What he clarified, and it was during the initial. This is on like a podcast. I think he had it's his podcast, and he had a guy on. But he clarified during the podcast that he's not like saying going at her. Basically, that he was saying that it's the guys that are super lame. That whole business model is kind of tricky because whether the girls are actually responding to these messages or whatever, or they got somebody overseas or these group of people overseas responding to these messages, like that the dudes, basically the ones that support this to the tune of $80 million in a year and a half are the lame ones. You know what I'm saying? So what do you think? What do you think about that? Like in terms of how he's calling out basically her customers as being suckers.
Look, I don't know. Like, I don't give it that much credence. I mean, he's a young guy himself. I'm assuming he's in his 20s, and he's just talking smack on a podcast. So I don't put too much weight behind, like that I got to scrutinize so much that stuff. But I just think, because here's the thing. I mean, I would say this. His reaction to me is he's just more surprised of the number, and I don't think he's thinking through his comments. That's all. Because I would say this, as you're talking, I'm reminded that the oldest profession in the world is what?
I don't know.
Right? Men paying women. And not for lectures or math lessons, right?
Not for lectures, for math lessons, that's for sure.
Yeah, so it's not, guys aren't paying women to go to teach them how to make sewing, kits and how to, do math problems. The oldest profession is men paying women for sex, period. So if you think about, or I'm thinking of a restaurant like Hooters or whatever, or a strip club where men spend lots of money, forever, right? As long as they've been open. And so I'm just making the point that at the end of the day, his comments to me resonate less than it's the eye-dropping reality that a young lady in 18 months made $82 million from men paying for access to her, whatever that access means.
Yeah, mediated access.
Yeah,
access,
that's what I'm saying. Which I've just learned through reading about this, but she's not even having sex on camera with men. So it's even, to me, more interesting of how she's able to generate this kind of revenue. And so what does that mean? That's what I mean. To tease out that guy's comments is really like, what are we asking? Because this is not even to satisfy that type of pleasure. So is it that there's this many lonely men that feel like they just need a woman to pay them attention, even if it's virtual, like just saying hi and talking to them and doing maybe some personalized
getting to see pictures, I guess, that other people don't see.
Or happy birthday or whatever, that's what I'm saying. It creates a lot of interesting questions for me of that more than to criticize or to just.
Well, but without using the word lame, then it seems like you're as baffled as he is that there's this many dudes paying her for what appears to be, like you said, it's not, X-rated stuff or whatever. But so it sounds like you're as baffled as he is.
Well, in a certain way, yes, but I'd say for different reasons, because the way you said that makes me realize there's a lot of men paying to watch him play basketball too.
That was what I was about to go to. I was going to say, let me tell you this, man, because I looked at it. Oh, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, from an entertainment standpoint, I'm not asking the question. I'm just saying that the young lady is kind of proof that there's always a demand for women when it comes to men. Like, we're always going to look for women and pay for it, meaning not all of us, but,
there's always
a critical mass.
Yeah.
So if you can just figure out how to monetize that, you're in business. And she seems to be someone who's figured out how to monetize that the right way financially in the information age. Let's put it that way.
I mean, to me, it's really interesting to me because I'll say this: like, he, as an NBA player, he has, and then he's been highly touted high school. Like, he actually hasn't lived up to what he thought. They thought he was like a number one rated high school player. You know, all this stuff. Like, he's been considered big thing for a really long time, and actually hasn't lived all the way up to that. Just a lot of it due to injury, but. Like, he's been in, like been exposed to things like groupie culture and all this other stuff going the other way with women, waiting in hotel rooms or the DMs or whatever his whole life, for a large part of his adult life or post-pubescent life. And so I think that some of that creeps in as well, where he's looking at these guys as like, those are like the groupies basically that he deals with, but for her, you know what I'm saying? And so it's really interesting to me how then he then projects that back onto the dudes. But to your point that you kind of threw in, it's like, well, someone could look at the same thing like, well, why are people paying hundreds of dollars to go to a basketball game? Exactly. Or a pro basketball game in particular, because you can go pay $10 to go see high school kids play. You can pay, whatever. Like, it's going to see professional basketball or watching it on television or wearing some dude's jersey. Why are grown men walking around wearing his jersey? So forth. So I think that if you want to get into quote unquote fan behavior and try to start rationally parsing that out, you're not going to get too far away from what he would say is lame of these dudes with the female, with her doing it on OnlyFans and so forth. So to me, I think that maybe we kind of mythologize and lie to ourselves a little bit as far as what's happening with pro sports and fandom and all that kind of stuff in a way that this OnlyFans doesn't allow us to mythologize and like, it's kind of just, it reveals it all. It's naked. It's like, oh yeah, this is kind of just what people do. Some people, and again, I'm not saying this is a negative or a positive. It's just like, this is a human thing, so if I'm hating this and I'm hating humans, you know what I'm saying? Because I may not do it, but there are people that do it, and there's probably more of them than there are of me.
Well,
so I mean, it's like, to me, it's a revealer more than anything. But
here's another question, which again, this is now we're having fun speculating. I can't get inside the young man's head, the basketball player who made the comments. But I also feel like, because look, I'm 47, so I kind of, thinking back to what I thought of things when I was in my 20s, mid-20s, late 20s, whatever. And I also played NCAA basketball, so I kind of remember being the jock mentality, the athlete guy. And I could see myself at that age having a different feeling just because I kind of would have probably said the same thing. Think about it. He's an NBA player. He doesn't have a problem getting chicks. He's a guy that's taller than the average man, right? He's been in shape. So he's
something about him in particular also is this is a guy that says he wouldn't date women who have dated other NBA players, at least as of right now. He's still a young guy, but that's what he said. He's like, I wouldn't even date women who date NBA players. I wouldn't date. Which,
well, that's to me, that's besides the point of this topic. That's just his personal thing. But
look out for this kind of mentality is kind of. But to your point,
well, what I'm just saying is that as a younger man who's an alpha male and who is currently getting women, right? Like, whether he's dating a lot or not, I don't know. But I mean, he's an NBA player and he's a tall, in shape, athletic man who makes a lot of money. So that is attractive in our society to women, right? So I could see him having that attitude because he doesn't have a problem probably just dealing with women, or at least the ability to attract women. So he doesn't appreciate that there's probably a lot of guys that aren't like him and that may be shy or they don't know how to go talk to a woman and all that. And so for them to pay for attention from a woman, especially if it can be curated in a way that it feels like she's paying you attention. Like I said, maybe she's doing a personal happy birthday, shout out to some dude and he paid for it. And again, I could see when I was younger looking down on men who do that and saying, oh man, look at that loser. He can't get no ass, da-da-da. And, now that I'm older, it's not that I am sympathetic or not. It's just I'm more well-rounded where I can say, okay, there's a market for that. Right. And
well, but there's something that you're missing there. There's something that you're missing there. Like, he may have all of these advantages and so forth, but that doesn't necessarily make it easier for him to get a depth of connection, a connection that feels like
I'm not saying he does.
He can get a lot of superficial connection, but a lot of.
But he might not want to. I didn't want.
What I'm saying.
Let
me make a point though. But you're saying these guys aren't getting. Like, you're saying these guys want somebody to wish them happy birthday and something like. something more than a superficial thing a lot of times, which we don't know. We can't get in their heads. They may just want to see some pictures or whatever. But the thing is that it's not, even if you have all the advantages, it's not always easier to find deeper connections. Then you got to worry about all these people that are trying to take advantage of you also. So finding real, hold on, let me say the thought. Finding real connection is not easy in any scenario, no matter where you're coming from.
I'm not going that far. We don't know.
Well, I'm making the point separately. I'm making the point separately that just because it's easy for him to get women in your telling of it doesn't mean it's easy for him to establish connection. You can't associate those two automatically together, because sometimes it's easier, and then sometimes you got everybody walking up to you trying to get something out of you, or trying to trick you, or trying to do this and that. And so there's complexity with men and women and these relationships across the board. I don't know that we ever can find straight simplicity.
Yeah, no, I agree. And, I guess...
what's your last thought, man? Let's wrap this up.
No, my overall point is that, just with that point was that, he's a young man who I could see him, just like I would have probably looked at guys who pay for a woman, whatever that is, attention. And it's kind of, you look down on that because you don't have to. And so I just remember having that attitude. Yeah. That's why I didn't like to go to strip clubs at that age. Because I
feel it's definitely, everything is going to be from our perspective, So his perspective is going to be the one defined by his age, by his experience and so forth. But I mean, again, the larger connection here I see with the entertainer aspect in our society. Entertainers, I think a lot of people would say entertainers make quote unquote more money than they're worth. Movie stars, popular musicians, sports athletes, and then OnlyFans apparently. So I think that when you have sniping amongst them, it's where it gets a little bit more like what's happening there. And maybe like you're saying, that's just age, that's his perspective. But this is like, you don't see movie stars over there talking about athletes making too much money, or athletes over there saying, oh yeah, these people making music, making too much money, at least out loud, This brings in a little bit more to it, because the reason that a movie star makes a lot of money or that a musician makes a lot of money is something that we're more comfortable with you and used to seeing. Whereas the OnlyFans model is just a newer model, and she's not being exploited by or taken advantage of like we've seen in those type of industries a lot of times. Like, she's just getting paid. And so I think it is throwing a lot of people off in ways that, kind of reflects here. So again, not to get in here and say somebody's right or somebody's wrong, but it's just an interesting interaction. So, but I think we can wrap from there, man.
Let me add to that. I'll say this, because I think you're right. I mean, I'm not going to argue that point. I think that, but there could be ands, because other people could be motivated different ways. And I think one of the ands would be, I think a lot of us men don't have respect for a lot of, like, when a woman does well at something, to respect that she also worked hard at that. I mean, I think the attacks on women in the military, for example, is a good example, as if somehow they don't have to train the same way to be a pilot or to do whatever, that they're just given this thing. And I think because it's OnlyFans, he's probably looking at it with the attitude of, oh, well, she's just a hot chick. All she's got to do is go online and put pictures of herself up there, and she makes all this money. But I got to work hard and get in the gym and sweat, and I got to be, fighting all these gorillas on a basketball court and get them off me and all this. And what I'm saying,
he might not look at that when if it's Tom Cruise for Mission Impossible. He might not have that, because at least he gets it. Like, oh yeah, he has to do this and do that and all that.
Yeah. But I just think, like, who knows? I mean, I'm sure this young lady works hard, right? She's got to keep her marketing, her thing. She's got to be on, engage all these people online.
Well, she works hard enough to make $82 million.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Who's to judge based on that? I mean, because that's a market. We rock with the market, right? And that's what the market is bearing out. Whether she can do that for 20 years is a whole nother issue. But she's doing it now. And so, I mean, if you're knocking it, you're just knocking the hustle, because of your own hangups. So cool, man. That's good, man. I appreciate, everybody joining us for this call out. Subscribe to the Call Like I See a podcast. And again, I'm James Keys. That's Tunde Ogunlana, and we'll talk soon.